M.A.S.K, where illusion is the ultimate weapon.
Hey everybody, it's Bill from Matt-Trakker.com, and I'm joined today by, well, I guess I'd call him a G.I. Joe fan, right? So
Yeah.
This is Chris McLeod from the Full Force podcast, and, well, I've been meaning to get this together for a little while because G.I. Joe, there was always that perception of M.A.S.K copying it, and the correlation, I'm gonna pick your brain on it.
Sure.
Later on in this. But I know when I was a kid, there were some things about G.I. Joe and M.A.S.K that really bothered me. But before we get into this, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your podcast and exactly, what you're doing with it. So the fans.
What am I doing with this podcast? That's a good question. So we started, we're coming up to our sixth year, coming up very soon. In fact, this month. In fact, could it be our 6th birthday already? I think it may already have passed. I think it was yesterday.
It's July 17th right now at 1:17.
I'm going to have to double check when we first, I think it's the 13th. So happy birthday to us yesterday.
Happy birthday.
So we started 6 years ago. We started off obviously as an action force, which was the UK and Europe, UK equivalent of G.I. Joe in the States. And we kind of started off doing action force based things like the Kraken here, the Robo Skull that seems to be kind of like everyone's favorite thing at the moment, and all that kind of jazz. But as we've kind of developed and kind of grown, we've kind of dipped into other brands. And obviously when the crossover happened with IDW and the Hasbro Cinematic Universe that never quite happened. We did obviously get the M.A.S.K connection, and I'm a huge M.A.S.K fan. Like, I have been a fan since day one. I can send you an image for the video as well if you want to show a picture of my collection. Which
definitely.
It's an older picture from way back, but I'll send you that, and then you can pop it on the.
I usually when I was talking with Paul, who's also a big G.I. Joe fan, about the artwork that he did. I told him, I was like, we're going to talk about some stuff, and I'm just going to I'm holding it here like this, so I'll get it in post,
Awesome. Post is our friend. Post-production's our friend. And so we've kind of grown quite a lot. And obviously when that crossover happened, we did a lot of episodes on, Visionaries, Transformers, M.A.S.K, Action Man, ROM, Micronauts, and we thought this was really cool. Like I was enjoying it quite a lot, doing lots of different brands. And in actual fact, we had a M.A.S.K episode, which went on for so long. Like, it's a long episode. It wasn't as long as the Visionaries and Transformers episodes, which hit, I think, 8.5 hours for the Visionaries, and I think we broke 10 hours for Transformers.
Did you at least have bathroom breaks? I mean,
no, it was all of it was recorded in separate times. So we had because we do all our stuff in segments.
Okay.
So it was we had the intro that we do, and then we had an interview with Brandon Easton, who was on the M.A.S.K comic. Mm-hmm. We had an interview with Doug Stone as well, voice of your very own named Matt-Trakker.com, who is lovely, by the way.
Doug, you and I can probably just do a podcast about Doug, but not to interject, but
by all means.
So he's a big hockey fan.
Yeah.
And I randomly get to chat with Matt-Trakker about hockey,
so surreal.
Yeah, it if you told me that when I was 5, 6, forget that. But Doug, I did a panel with him at RetroCon.
RetroCon, I was going to say, yeah.
I wish we had better audio of it, but just sitting up there with them, I didn't belong up there.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there next to Matt-Trakker, Doug Stone, and one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And,
100%.
And so
the fact that he runs a sanctuary for cats now as well, like dude's like,
he's on the board, I think now.
Humanitarian and all sorts. Yeah, really nice guy.
Yeah, he's definitely a cat lover, and he does a ton of charity work with that. And I don't know, and he's still doing voice work.
Yeah.
I mean, so one of the things that you might have known or might not have known is that Mega Man 11, it just came out 6 months ago.
Yeah.
He voices one of the characters in that.
So crazy.
It's Dr. Light. I might have to double check that.
Yeah.
But he's still doing voice work, and
he's a legend. Dude's like awesome. So he was an absolute delight to chat to. So was Brandon, actually. Brandon's really cool. We should be getting him on an interview for his upcoming, because he's just written some of the Transformers animated Netflix stuff. So we're going to get him on an interview with that very soon, just to talk about, not that we can talk about lots of it because none of it's really known yet, but, he's going to come in on chat. Again, really nice guy. I'm not sure how you felt about the Mask reboot, but like I personally thought it was a really solid comic. And then like just towards the end, like when you could tell that, I suppose, a lot of things were going on at IDW as well, it just went off the rails completely, which was a shame, because I was really enjoying that kind of reboot of Mask. And obviously with it being tied into G.I. Joe was like a big deal. And I believe I spoke to you not like around that time, very brief on like a comment or something on one of your posts, something about us having, I think I shared one of your things and you kind of thanked me for it. And I said something along the lines of, well, we've got to stick together now that we're in the same universe, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I thought like, it's a kind of a bit too long in coming that we haven't, had the proper chat and, really kind of got into this stuff previously.
Yeah, I've talked about, I mean, we could probably do a whole other episode on IDW too. And I've talked about it where I feel that IDW made a mistake in cutting it the way they did, because so the problem with it was, and it's going to be the problem with any kind of movie adaptation or any kind of relaunch of anything with this, is that it's been stagnant for so long.
Yes.
For what the fans are doing.
Yeah.
There was no promotion to it. It was, oh, here's M.A.S.K. That was it. That was like, and that, like, you can't generate memories of that. Like, it's not going to come to anybody.
Yeah.
You just kind of throw it off in the offshoot on the side. And Brandon, Tony Vargas, one of the artists, I got to talk to him off and on, and I felt they did a great job with the story, with taking it to a modern adaptation. Yeah. Obviously, piggybacking off of the shared universe that we have, that's still supposed to be coming.
We also kind of grew into doing lots of different things. Like I was really. We would do like a news segment on the podcast, but the podcast would come out like on a monthly basis. So it was like we were doing news that was just long gone and not really part of the psyche anymore. Sometimes we were so late in coming to the show again that it was long gone. So I thought, well, I'd rather do stuff like up to the minute as possible, close as we can. As soon as a story breaks, that like one or two of us can jump on a recording and do a news burst. So I thought, well, let's do news bursts. So that kind of launched the YouTube channel, and we did news bursts. That turned into also comic bursts, Disorder of Battle. So we cover, like, with comic bursts, we cover the IDW, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and then any related comics in that universe. Okay. So if M.A.S.K does come back in any way, shape, or form again, then that'll be, right in our wheelhouse. But we also do things like Disorder of Battle, where we look at old Battle Action Force comics, and then we also do figure subscription battles. So a lot of the modern figures that came out, we would then pit them against each other to then do like a playoff bracket and whoever comes out the winner is like the best figure of that FSS bracket and stuff like that. So it's grown now to where we do lots of different multimedia things, and it's more than just a podcast. In actual fact, it's everything but a podcast, because the podcast, the main audio episode, comes out less than everything else, which is just flooding, as soon as I can get it edited, it's out, and then that becomes the next episode, I suppose. So it's grown, it's evolved a little bit, but we are going to be adding a lot more things. And then, I love doing stuff like this as well. I love doing kind of video shows with yourself, and I just did one with Michael Mercy, who's like an amazing YouTuber. Analog Tony, another guy amazing YouTuber. So yeah, it's an amazing community at the moment. The fan community for these like lost and forgotten brands is stronger than I think they've ever been.
Yeah, and that's one of the driving forces behind my website and me doing these episodes of Behind the Mask, is that one of the taglines I have is keeping M.A.S.K alive since 2001. That's when I started the website.
I bet you wish you started in 2005 just so it rhymed, right?
Yeah, it would have been better, but it's surreal. I'm not overly comfortable in front of the camera, but I want to do whatever I can to keep the M.A.S.K interest alive.
Yeah,
I'm not a production company. I'm one guy here, and my cat's over here. You can't see her in the shot, and I'm just a fan that wants to see something happen. And it's a
case of like fans taking it upon themselves when everything dies off around them, isn't it? In a sense, like when things kind of like go very stagnant with like, it's the same with G.I. Joe at the moment. Like it's gone really kind of quiet. There's no real presence at retail. There's the odd licensed product here and there. There's the talk of a Snake Eyes movie, which is now switched over to possibly going back to G.I. Joe 3. Also, like, it's just up in the air. You never really know what's real and what's not. So I think, there's been loads of, again, fan input to kind of like pump life into it. And I think that's just what you're doing here with M.A.S.K and what, agents of M.A.S.K do, and what, all those different kind of like Facebook groups and stuff at the same time. I mean, funny enough, I think the M.A.S.K thing is like, I don't feel like it's niche. I don't feel like it's any more niche than Joe, because I loved it so much when I was a kid. And it's only because it stopped producing toys and figures and content and media that it kind of, drifted away a bit more than, say, G.I. Joe, which kept trying to reboot and reinvigorate itself. So yeah, I think in terms of like differences, I think M.A.S.K is really just hampered in that it never really got that return, did it? It never really came back, other than IDW and maybe the Matt-Trakker figure that we've had 2 of recently. And exactly, yeah. That's the original one, right? Or was that's not the original? This is that's the Revolution. Yeah.
We'll get into that. We'll get to those guys in a little bit.
I love those figures, by the way. Spoiler alert.
They're really well done. It was a shame that it was just a repaint kind of type thing. But, we can get into that. But no, it's an odd thing, because I'm still trying to figure out why M.A.S.K stopped. I've reached out to showrunners. I've reached out to people that would have that inside knowledge. Obviously, the voice actors who have been very accommodating over the years, talking with me, and they don't have the full story of everything, and I don't want to ask them that. It's not an appropriate question. But for the showrunners, I mean, I get asked all the time. So there's at least a couple of messages a day in my inbox, which I don't mind. But why was Shark never made?
Mm-hmm.
Why did they move to a racing series? Why all these questions? And these are questions I don't have answers to, but they're the questions that everybody keeps asking. And obviously, it's over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
That those questions would have, direct answers, but it's just simple question is I don't know. And obviously, with Agents of M.A.S.K, there's the M.A.S.K Comics website, there's boulderhill.net, and there's other ones out there too that pre-existed my website even.
Yeah.
The
Albert Pinello's
Yeah, that was like the first one that had a really comprehensive kind of list of everything.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been touched since like 2004.
No, it hasn't. No.
But it still works.
Yeah.
It works as for what it is.
I mean, that's the sad thing about it. It's like there hasn't been anything really since, has there, in terms of product and stuff like that?
No, there hasn't. But that's why. So at one point, I was sitting there like, all right, there needs to be original content.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm doing anything justice with what I'm doing, but recently there's an independent comic creator creating M.A.S.K 85.
Yeah.
And it's him doing it, 4-part series. It's out of nowhere.
Looks really cool as well. Yeah, totally.
It's a good storyline, and I actually got a preview of like the 4th episode, the 4th comic. Can't share it with anybody, but
awesome.
Like little things like that give you hope. And that's all you can really cling to with this. But
yeah.
It's hard to comprehend it, and I know that there's something out there. I know there's something brewing, but it's taking forever.
Yeah.
Whether it's tied to G.I. Joe universe movies, or whether it's if it's M.A.S.K by itself, if it's tied to Transformers, I don't care what it is. Matt-Trakker can just be a name drop in a movie, and I'd be happy right now.
Yeah.
As an Easter egg in something. So that's where I'm at with that. But so that we can circle back on that whole shared universe. But there's one thing. So growing up, I don't know if you had the same issues that I had, but I always had issues with the scale of the toys, and obviously they're made to work with whatever they're how they're manufacturing. But so here's a G.I. Joe. I have Duke here with no accessories, right? And I don't have any of the original G.I. Joe figures. The Barbie size.
Yeah.
These came out what, 84-ish?
82. Yeah. Originally, yeah.
The year I was born. Okay. Oh wow.
That Duke is probably 84 though.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to see his.
Maybe 83.
83, yeah. 83.
Yeah.
So, and I watched the Toys That Made Us episode on this, and it was really like you learn about all those little back end stories and how things come to be.
Yeah. It
was so interesting, but all the other toys at the time. So here's He-Man here.
Yeah. 5.5. Yeah.
He's a little bigger, right?
Yeah.
So these guys can't interact. Well, they can, but I don't know how well it will go.
Yeah. Actually, you've just kind of recreated a scene from one of the first G.I. Joe miniseries where Duke is in an arena of sport fighting this huge barbarian dude. So I'm going to send you a picture of that just so that you can like hold the two up together and be like, literally they can work together. That is hilarious.
Well, I knew that. Sure. But as time progressed, all right, so let me grab, here's Matt-Trakker, right?
Hey, Doug.
So these don't work.
Yeah.
It looks like a child. It looks like Scott next to him for comparison, right? So when I was a kid, I could never, like G.I. Joe, I had some, but I wasn't big into them.
Yeah.
And partly, I think because of the scaling of the M.A.S.K figures. Now, I always wanted them to be together, like in the same universe, even when I was younger, because they made sense.
Yeah, big time.
So I have a whole kind of random pile of things here. Let's talk about scaling wise, but so I'll get to that in a minute. But as a G.I. Joe fan, did the scale make sense to you when you were younger, and does it still make sense today at this size because they still produce G.I. Joe figures in this roughly scale?
Yeah, around that 4-inch size, don't they? Yeah,
Matt-Trakker again here.
I think it was like for me, like in terms of scale, when I was a kid, I tend to jump on everything. Like I was really like excited with a lot of the toy lines that were kind of out at the time. Like He-Man was the first action figure I ever owned as a child. My mum and dad bought me He-Man and Battle Cats, so that was like my first kind of action figure. Had a huge Master Universe collection, loved it. Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain in the hallway, figures everywhere. Dad would moan because he'd stand on them all the time. But you know, I love that line. But then Action Force was kind of a thing in the UK, and I was of the age that I just missed out on the Palatoy stuff, but did get like a hand-me-down box of the kind of like a mix and matching of like loose figures and vehicles from that line. And they were 5 point of articulation for kind of 3 3/4 inch. So that was also a little bit of a head scratcher when, you know, these Action Force G.I. Joe figures started coming out with all this like articulation. It was like, well, you know, why do I care about these guys? They're kind of just like, you know, display now. They're not really going to be used as you know, toys. But on top of that, I loved the Turtles figures when they dropped. I was a massive fan of the Turtles. And in and around, yeah, there you go. And in and around like the time between Master of the Universe and say TMNT, I was just absolutely just all over M.A.S.K and Dino Riders and all of those kind of the 2-inch or what, you know, whatever they're called in terms of scale. All of those smaller figures I just absolutely adored. I think there's a collectability feeling about a smaller action figure. And something I wanted to talk to you about, kind of this kind of ties into it, was the fact that in the UK you could get exclusive, or we got these exclusive figures that never came out in the US. You know, the Arctic Assault, and yeah, there you go. Hondo McLean as well, that amazing like multicolored Hondo. You know, yeah, brilliant. Just awesome figures. There he is.
If you see my figure shelf, it's right here next to my desk.
Yeah.
I usually kind of post a shot of it, but I do have every figure. But yeah, you're right. So the UK had these weird, like, well, not weird, but the color scheme was just completely different.
Oh yeah, totally crazy. I love that. I'm a massive fan of Deco, and when they came out, that was like the ability to buy, you know, like cheaper figures, but then figures on their own. Like Dino Riders had the Commando unit, didn't they? And they came out as single figures that you could buy on like 2 packs, I think, you know, like, and stuff like that. So they were doing. So I was a massive fan of that scale. I wasn't too concerned about the two not being able to be married together, because I would tend to be, especially as a kid, when I played with my toys, it would always be like, you know, almost like you're separating your food on a plate. It was like, you know, I had my M.A.S.K. I want to play M.A.S.K today. I want to play Turtles today. I want to play G.I. Joe today. I want to play, you know, so I would be none of it would be mixed up. I was very organized as a kid as well. Like everything would be in its place. So I had, you know, all my G.I. Joe vehicles and bases and figures. Like, you know, Joe was probably, or Action Force that became G.I. Joe in the UK, was probably my biggest like love. That was a constant. But guess what else I kept from my childhood? My M.A.S.K toys. So I know for a fact as a almost like a you know, like a tester, I could tell that Joe and M.A.S.K were obviously hugely loved. Like it didn't take a detective to know that I loved both of those properties, because they were kept as I got into an adult. I didn't keep Master of the Universe, Turtles, Thundercats, Ghostbusters, etc., etc. All that stuff was sold. So you know, I look back at it now and think, oh, what was I doing? But you know, I kept those, and one of the reasons is because I just find M.A.S.K figures so bloody awesome and collectible.
No, they definitely are. So randomly, I look over at this shelf here, and
yeah,
the color palette it's all over the place. But that should be the case, because they're all individually different figures, entities, really.
Yeah.
So the shelf I have, I've talked about it before, where my grandfather built it to display hockey cards, essentially. And
awesome.
It just turns out that the scaling was perfect for the entire figure line.
Awesome.
I still have enough room on here for some more Argentina figures as I come across them.
Oh my God. How many different variations can you get though? Seriously.
But I was able to actually reach out to the owner of Playful.
Amazing.
And He's gonna answer some questions for the show one day.
Very
so
cool.
I'm hoping that he has a number, because I said I had all the figures, but if there's like 200 color variations of these things, I have to get them somehow.
Oh, totally.
I might have to go to Argentina to find them. I don't know. But there's so many of them, and I'm just looking at them here. So scale wise, yes, the smaller scale makes it easier to collect, because I have, I don't know, I forget how many I have here exactly, but they're all sitting in a shelf that's 3x2, right? And I have things back here. You might be able to see it a little bit.
I can see. Yeah.
So like, there's some Secret Wars, there's some Batman animated series, superpowers. It's all crammed in that spot there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. Like it's fine for displaying, but I feel like it's all crammed in there.
Sure.
Smaller stuff, people are probably able to keep that a little easier, because it didn't take up as much room as you're growing up.
Yeah.
So putting it away in storage, it's going to stay, because it's in a box. Who cares? And then it lasts. I actually had far more Masters and Turtles than I do now when I was younger, but we played with them outside, and they one time we used to put them in a trash can to store them, and they accidentally got put out in the trash.
Oh.
My mom still.
Oh man, I would cry
for that, but
I would cry so bad.
It's, I mean, there were a ton of them. I think my brother and I buried them in the backyard too. But
it's what happens when you're a kid, though, when you're playing with these things. Like, you get like not carried away necessarily, but yeah, you do stuff like that. And have you seen The Boy Who Could Fly? Have you ever seen that movie? 80s classic. Fred Savage is in it, and he plays this kid who,
yes, I have.
Yes. And he's got all those G.I. Joe figures, and he name drops all the time throughout, and he's playing with. I think he ends up burying Duke at one point, and then runs out in the rain, and he's like,
Duke was only in a coma in the movie, so
yeah, exactly. So he had to pull him out of the dirt. But I mean, I had a Footloose figure that he saw some stuff, but he ended up I did exactly the same thing. I said, I want to bury one of my figures, and then run out in the rain all scared, wanting to get him back. It's a weird thing that went through my head. And buried him, got him out, and effectively his screw in the back, that rusted up because of that process. But you really do batter the crap out of them, don't you, when you're a kid? So
the back of my Duke's rusty. Maybe
there you go. And maybe that's the one. Maybe that's the one from The Boy Who Could Fly.
It's broken too. I don't be shit there, but
Oh yeah, they get very brittle, the foot peg holes, don't they?
It could be the one. Who knows? But yeah,
let's just say it is.
Yeah,
and
it
that's,
is. It's
yeah,
the
fact.
One. I don't remember the movie at all. Vaguely, I remember it. And this is the Duke. This is it.
Amazing.
If anybody wants it. So I have a kind of a mishmash of figures here, and some of the ones that I played with a lot when I was a kid. So M.A.S.K was obviously up there.
Oh, totally, yeah.
And the scaling made sense on the figure size because of the vehicles. The vehicles were the driving force of the show.
Yeah.
Whereas G.I. Joe, I feel the characters were
character based. Yeah.
But then the vehicles, I mean, I talked to Paul about the flag. I was like, can you imagine if Boulder Hill was actually
well, Boulder Hill's a funny one. I had Boulder Hill for Christmas, that whatever year it came out in the UK, and thought it was the greatest thing ever. Just there's so many cool features on it. I love the jail cell, the trapdoor type jail cell scenario. Loved the boulder mechanism and everything, and the gun turret, and the only thing I was upset about as a kid was that I couldn't fit any of the vehicles in the bloody garage. I was so upset about that.
I talked about that before. Where
I think I've seen you do a couple of chats on that on your videos.
Yeah, I try to get Rhino through it, trying to recreate the opening scene. It doesn't work.
No.
My new puppy fits through it fine.
I did see that. I did see that.
I can't imagine how much bigger it would have had to have been. The box alone is massive. I don't have the box, but I know the size of it.
I do. It's a big one.
And
yeah.
It's not obviously anywhere near as big as the flag,
flag or Terradrome. Yeah.
Field itself.
Yeah.
But the Boulder Hill for the scaling, I don't know if you've watched any of the other episodes of the Toys That Made Us too.
I have, yeah, I've seen all of them.
You know, they talked about the Masters line with Castle Grayskull.
Grayskull, yeah.
You know, they're trying to fit the characters through the door, and they had to go sideways, like, and they had to go back and redo it. That probably happened, but they probably were like, you know,
no one's gonna care.
Here. So let's get on with it anyway, because it came out in the first line. But when you're doing,
I think the one thing I wanted in Boulder Hill wasn't necessarily that it was big enough for the vehicles. I mean, that would have been great. But if you were to flip it round and have maybe inside the canyon the kind of table and helmet kind of contraption that kind of feeds the helmets to them.
That was always a wish.
That would have been amazing.
There are, I can post some links here as we're talking about it, but there is what's the name of the website? Shapeways.
Yes.
Somebody created that table.
3D print type kind of job, yeah.
They did, like, and that's how I have Thunderball and Ramp Up. Not the same designer that I remember, but
those are the unreleased kind of sets, weren't they? Yeah.
I can't reach them here, but I mean, like, this is a T-Bob that I got off of Shapeways, like, cartoon accurate, except
so cute
because my hands aren't steady enough to do it. But there's a lot of creative people out there that are they're taking the initiative to do these things, and the Thunderball and the Ramp Up, those were done just by looking at pictures. They didn't have the tangible pieces.
Crazy.
There's like 4 of each, maybe.
Yeah, there's not much in the way of reference, is there, for those either?
Even so, before some pictures were released to me, there was, like, you know, tiny resolution images, like,
they were grainy as hell, those first images,
files.
And
there was no reference points, but with the pictures, I was able to get, there was a custom artist who did
amazing, gorgeous.
They are, and the simple fact that he's working off of them just from pictures, and the pictures of those are grainy. I don't know how he got the detail on these, but it's not just paint; they're sculpts. And
amazing. I
can't do it.
Have you ever seen them come up for, like, sorry, I nearly knocked my computer over. Have you ever seen the originals come up for auction at all? And how much were they?
And so there was actually one of the people. There was actually a moderator on my forum that was a long time ago who actually got one. He got
nice.
I don't know what happened to him. He kind of fell off the face of the earth with online entity things, but he actually owned it and sent some pictures over of Ramp Up. Thunderball I've seen twice posted on eBay out of all the times I've been running the website, essentially. Last time I saw it sell was for about $4,000. And I think, if I remember correctly, it was about 6 years ago. So I don't know who has them. I don't know if they were sold from the original designers, but I know that some exist, and it's just that's some of the things too. Is that as time progressed with the line, they got odder and odder with their designs and their concepts.
Yeah,
you kind of have to when you're taking a vehicle and turning it into an offensive.
Yeah, totally. The question came up actually when we did the M.A.S.K episode way back, but we were both saying, Troy, who was on the show that time as well with myself, Troy McKee, we were both kind of talking about these unreleased items, and we both said, would we have been that bothered if they'd have come out when we were kids? Would they have been something that we would have picked up? And we were kind of saying, like, because there was some that we did pass on, not necessarily out of because we didn't want them, but because we wanted something else instead, like another M.A.S.K vehicle that was on the shelf at that particular time. So, like, I wonder if, like, those two would even have been that, attractive to us back then. But because when you think about it back then, that definitely, I think, comes into play. When we're looking at it back now, it's like that. Obviously, it's got that extra edge of awesome because it was unreleased and you can't get hold of it for less than $4,000.
So just to go back to that, all right. So I went into my shelf here. So here's the Thunderball, right?
And
it opens and it has the guns on it.
That's amazing.
And this part opens here, and there's a cannon part to it.
So
this
cool.
Is done from pictures.
Yeah.
More like the guy who did this, he must be like an engineering genius, to be honest. But look at this. So you're a kid. You're going through the store and you see this, right? And obviously this is not released at the same time, but then you see this, right?
Yeah.
Autographed by Doug Stowe, by the way. You're not gonna like exactly what you said. Hey, what do I want? Do I want this? What do I want this?
I mean, they were good options at almost as to get the figure or to yeah, exactly. There you go.
I hate this damn thing so much. I have to own it in my collection. I hate it so much. It's so stupid.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, but at the same time, it's almost like when there's not much left on the shelves and you're out for a weekend or something. Yeah, exactly. It's just like a block. It's like a paperweight, the ramp up one, isn't it?
I mean, they said the concept of what the artist did to engineer this is great. Obviously, it's not like I don't know how to work the mechanism. The mechanism actually works, but I can't figure the damn thing out. So right now, I don't have it painted or anything. Again, because my hands aren't steady enough to do it.
Sure.
It's a simple fact that these exist in this realm today makes sense for collectors.
Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, all the parts for Thunderball, it came out to like $90. And I think all the parts for Ramp Up, like you have to buy them as separate parts for the.
I see. Yeah.
I think this came out to like 130 for Ramp Up.
Not bad. Not bad at all.
If you're talking about a diehard collector who can't convince his wife to invest in a prototype toy, you go with this.
Totally.
But your point of it is that why would I want that? And I wasn't devastated that they weren't released, but
they obviously saw the reason. There's a reason why they didn't come out yet. Totally.
Yeah.
What year were they slated for? Was it kind of the year that they actually stopped?
They were supposed to come out. So the thing that was weird is that they were kind of tied into the Split Second series.
Yeah. But didn't have the Split Second figures.
Correct. So it was kind of weird with their timeline. But I've also seen I've seen them advertise with the Split Seconds line. I've also seen them in the racing series.
Right.
So
racing series would make a hell of a lot of sense.
It would, especially because one's a service ramp.
Yeah.
You're going to be doing that with race cars.
That was another thing we discussed. The fact that they do play a good role in like diorama building. So obviously, the more little pieces you have like that, you can create scenes, and it's like there's an interest there.
So if I had a really immersed like setup here with action scene or something like that, if I'm doing it for like a store window, which I've seen in the past, this would make sense. This also would make sense if I had a really cool train set. But I don't have the M.A.S.K train set, by the way. There is one. It's hard to find. But I
G.I. Joe too. I know exactly the feeling that you have though with it.
It's like M.A.S.K and I got together and did a funny commercial about you shouldn't get the kids, and Doug actually voiced it, did the voice. But I made it a point to play with this. I was like, what do you want me to do? I have this stupid can't move.
See, that would make more sense coming in a set for like a play set or something where you've got like maybe maybe like Boulder Hill, for example. You know, one of those things would make sense to come with that as another feature. I think standalone, they just had to throw a figure in there because it was just kind of pointless.
I love the Dusty figure that came with it, and
Big
the Skyrash figure for the pit stop catapult, which has. I
love that color scheme. I love it.
The same category of why is this here? But the figures, for me, it was weird. I like the figures more than I like the vehicles. I explain that.
For me, it was the collectability aspect. I love seeing them all lined up with all the different colors and everything. Yeah.
So I actually, the vehicles, like, they didn't survive my childhood. The only things that survived my childhood were my bulldog down here.
Nice.
I can't get it back up. I broke it in a review. It doesn't come back up. And firecracker.
Nice.
Jackhammer. Those are three. Everything else was I had to recollect because I just beat the hell out of them.
Yeah.
But the figures somehow survived. I had a lot of figures left over. Obviously I didn't have the UK releases. I didn't have the split seconds line because that was more of a thing that happened overseas more so than anything else. Where that's where I was able to recollect them all. I couldn't find them on eBay in the United States or anything like that. So luckily that existed. But
yeah,
like going back to like, so all right, I'm a kid and I'm a Matt-Trakker, and the only thing that worked was the battle beasts, right?
Nice.
The battle beasts
as well. Yeah,
they kind of worked, but going back to Ninja Turtles, they can't cross over. That doesn't work. Although this happened for some reason.
Nice. That's happened.
I think this recently happened, right?
They've just brought out a movie as well, like an animated movie. Yeah. SDCC just got a whole set of figures for SDCC 2019 as well. Incredible.
It doesn't work, right? This doesn't work.
Yeah.
These were all the toys that I loved when I was a kid. We got Luke here. Here, look. Here's my favorite G.I. Joe character. Right?
Snake Eyes. Nice. We just discussed the crap out of him on Talking Joe podcast.
I'm gonna admit though, this was my original one.
Nice.
His torso, which the rubber bands inside get a little O-ring. So he's hot glued together from underneath and into his torso. So I had just to make that known, that is my original, but he had to get kind of a little surgery there. The scaling, it kept the world of M.A.S.K to itself, and I think
even Dino Riders didn't really go with them, did they?
Well,
designed too dramatically different, I suppose.
Somebody did. This isn't a Dino Rider. I think this was Dino Riders are a little bit bigger. They were like going scale wise. They were like a foot taller if you're going full scale.
Yeah.
M.A.S.K figures. I think I'm trying to remember. You might know this. So I don't remember somebody put Matt-Trakker's head on this body, and this was from not Exo Squad.
Like Sky Commanders or something like that. Yeah.
So the scale on them was perfect. I don't have any Sky Commanders except for this one that somebody did, and it just works as a custom this way.
Nice.
All right.
That's really cool. I like that.
So I got this on. I think I got it on Etsy.
Nice. Yeah. The untapped resource. Mask stuff.
Weird. And I don't have any of those, but all the stuff that I had when I was a kid that I loved playing with.
It
cool. Would work in the realm. Like all these worked in the same realm. I can have Donatello fight Batman or Luke Skywalker if I needed to. When I think that's part of why M.A.S.K kind of fizzled, because of the fact that the figures, which I think, even though the vehicles were the driving force, the figures for me always stood out to be more prominent.
Quite isolated, yeah.
I think that kind of helped with it kind of going into the background, so to speak.
Yeah, totally.
Where the Masters line kept trying to rejuvenate itself, and they kept pushing stuff out, but they only kind of worked in the same realm as well because of their scaling. But the G.I. Joes, they fit in the realm of the Star Wars figures, of the superpowers, the Marvel Secret Wars, I even have this guy, the Phantom. They work with this.
Is that Defenders of the Earth Phantom?
Yeah, as obscure as it is.
Bloody
it's my wife's favorite superhero movie, so I had to get it in the collection.
Nice.
It's a shame that it happened in the way it did.
Yeah.
Because I said I don't have all the answers, but I suspect that the scaling is one of the reasons why it kind of was, eventually passed on. But
Yeah.
Joe's, they had this weird longevity.
Yeah.
And the same with Transformers. They had this lasting power, and
Turtles as well. Yeah.
And Turtles are still getting produced today.
Mm.
And then we have all the classic stuff now, and same thing with the Masters line. You have all the classics.
I know, like so over 300 figures of so many different characters in Master of the Universe they've done. I mean, that's one line that has been done beautifully in the modern line, in the modern era. The fact they've managed to kind of cover so many characters that they're getting into like obscure homages, like the UK annual coloured He-Man from 1987 or something, and he's like, wow, like they're really going deep on this.
Well, I only have one of the classic line. I have He-Man.
Nice.
But I
only collect New Adventures He-Man for the
old ones.
Yeah, because I was a weird geek boy for New Adventures of He-Man for some weird reason. I loved it as a kid.
I have them, but my dog got a little too friendly with them.
Oh no!
Yes, that's why I have glass now, protecting everything. And so I'll see if I can point it up. I have in the top there in the corner. It's from Super 7. It's the remake of this line.
Yeah.
In the Filmation line,
Yeah.
And so I have that's what I have for the newer stuff. And here's my original Orko that my dog got too. So.
Oh well, no more hat.
I kept them anyway.
I'm surprised you got the hat off that. That hat was usually on there pretty well with those ears, like the ears.
I couldn't even keep the hat. I think he got most of it down. But
amazing.
When this came out.
Oh yeah, there we go. G.I. Joe repaint.
When this came out, right?
I was so excited, man.
You were excited.
So excited.
I probably peed my pants when I saw it. I have one in the package too.
It's a big favorite. Yeah.
And I was expecting all this stuff to happen. And I think this was 2000.
The Condor homage as well was really nice with the backpack.
Yeah. I have the backpack. It's just in storage it's not on display.
Yeah.
And I had the stands it came with and everything.
They were. Do you know how close they were to doing Miles Mayhem? Like
no.
it was so close. They had.
That's what I was expecting. I was expecting that next.
The Collectors Club did General Mayhem figure, like it was one of their own figures they created, but the head sculpt was like, put his helmet on and it's blooming, it's Miles Mayhem. So I think there was like an homage to it by the club, but I get the feeling that he was definitely in the running to be done, because you could do one yourself. Like, other than getting the helmet, you've definitely got the parts, the head sculpt and stuff to do a Miles Mayhem, because there's the Worms officer who has the suit body with the kind of medals and stuff on it. So there's like a real possibility that you can easily do a custom, but at the same time, they missed a trick there. And since then, I'm not sure if it was you that posted it or if it was Agents of M.A.S.K or one of the other guys, but they were asking, or it might have been yourself, was asking about what vehicles do you think would have been good to do in the modern era using like G.I. Joe?
I think that was me.
I think it was you. And I posted on there I think I did like a couple of redecos. One was like an option to do Brad Turner with Condor, and you could use. It was like this kind of I think Rise of Cobra motorbike that was also released as Afterburner from when the Transformers G.I. Joe clubs did. What's the name? I forget her name now. Marissa Fairborn.
Right? Not this one.
No, it was the couldn't have been any more different in actual fact.
I was sitting right there, so I had to grab it. So.
The like that painted, in the kind of Condor way, that's sexy right there. That is sexy.
It's in my display, and not to interrupt, but this thing scares the hell out of my wife. So,
I have a few G.I. Joe ones of those. They are the
creepy as hell,
best,
aren't they?
man. So creepy. But yeah, like to do Brad would have been simple, like lifeline head and like O's and one of the Eco Warriors bodies, and you've got like done. Even the helmet done. Just redeco it, and you're in. So I kind of feel like they missed an opportunity to do a bunch of really cool homages.
There are a lot of customs out there that I've seen.
Oh yeah.
I travel around on the different websites and I see them. Every so often I'll see them posted for sale on eBay or whatever. Like I've seen it as obscure as Nash Gory custom figures, which
yes,
that's some dedication right there. If you're gonna
totally, yeah.
So when this came out, my hopes were like they skyrocketed. I was like, is M.A.S.K coming back through GI Joe?
Yeah.
I have a scale of Thunderhawk, like the size of a GI Joe vehicle.
Oh man,
I was going crazy. But at the time, I didn't have as much of a forum, I guess, as I have now. So I couldn't really express just how excited I was.
Yeah.
Like I had the Facebook page and the forum, and at that point. But if I got this and then more, even if it was like Condor, everybody had Condor. It was small.
Yep.
It was inexpensive. Condor and Piranha. Everybody I talked to, they either still have it or that was their first memory.
Totally.
You could have done Matt, Miles, Sly, and Brad in this line. Seen the sales actually go if you promote it correctly.
Yeah.
And then, because you said it early on, they're not really in the stores anymore. Whether that was before we started recording or not.
Yeah.
They don't have the store presence anymore. It's more of a collector's market. Same thing with the Masters lines and so on. But you take this and you toy with my emotions the way they did.
Yeah.
And then nothing. And then all of a sudden, IDW comes out with, and I'll be honest, I didn't know IDW was a comic publisher. My comic stuff was, I love all the comic entity things, but I was never big into comics.
Sure.
I know it's weird.
Not at all.
I have some sitting here of my favorite, like some of my favorite covers. But I thought, I was like, I didn't know it was a comic entity, so I was confused. I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
Being brought back, and I was trying to figure out the pulse of it.
Yeah.
And then I found out it was a comic, and I was like, all right, if that's the way they're going to do it, let's do it. But obviously, I said that you can talk about the IDW series all the time. I think it was cut way too short. It didn't get enough.
Same.
It didn't get enough of a push from IDW, in my opinion. And I promoted it as much as I could, but I'm a website that for a obscure, or not obscure, but
totally.
relatively obscure 80s entity.
Yeah.
And there was all this untapped marketability that they could have taken over. They didn't do it. And obviously, I don't know what it takes to market a comic book. I don't know what it takes to market a brand itself. But as I alluded to earlier, you can't just, this is M.A.S.K now. You can't just do that without some sort of promotion to it.
Yeah, totally.
And, I do have the entire run of the comics. I have all the alternate, the alternate ones. I have all the crossovers. I even have one that was autographed by Brandon that Eric from BoulderHill.net was able to get. Yeah. But you have this figure, and then San Diego Comic-Con comes out with this repaint of Matt, and obviously a little bit of different Matt here, which people are up in arms about, which I don't agree with.
Get over yourself.
No, exactly. It was weird backlash. I loved it. I still do.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's some differences between the two, but you're putting this out with ROM and Micronauts and Transformers and G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
I was like, it's coming. Here it comes. I got nothing.
Well, I must admit, I was thinking, I think they had, before the IDW thing kind of fell on its face a little bit, I think there was actually a plan to do another set following the one they did with the Revolution one. And I pitched this idea early on, like, oh, could you imagine a First Strike set? Which was, again, I'll send you the mock-up, the really rushed Photoshop mock-up image of it. But I was thinking Thundercracker. No, sorry, not Thundercracker, Skywarp, because it was Skywarp was in the comics at the time with the G.I. Joe team instead of Jetfire. And then Miles Mayhem, Darkstorm from the Visionaries, obviously a ton of like bad guy Micronauts.
Yeah, that would have been phenomenal.
You know what I mean? And like a Dire Wraith. And then for G.I. Joe, I think I can't remember who I had. I think maybe like a Baron Ironblood for the bad guys, because obviously he was, obviously massive in the UK. And then at the same time was in the comic too. So, and he was one of the main bad guys. So I thought, oh my God, could you imagine what that lineup would look like and how cool it would be? And then nothing ever again. So it was like, damn, we were this close to getting a Miles again,
Yeah, the teasing of it. It's not even, they didn't even do it on purpose. It just
didn't work, unfortunately, which again, I think it would have done with a better approach, but I think it was almost kind of like they started really big and really like bright with it, and for whatever reason it just lost legs. Like some of the storytelling kind of fell short. Some of the some of the plot points didn't quite hit you well, and you end up with like a bit of a and also IDW scheduling was all over the place. They ruined a reveal as to who Baron Ironblood was, like, because they released out of order. And I mean, that to me, that is kind of unforgivable. That's like, ridiculous. But
yeah, I mean, even though the last season of Game of Thrones wasn't great, you can't have the last episode premiere the first time, like,
exactly,
have all that ruin it. But so I want to actually touch on what you just said a little bit, but I don't know if you remember too, in between this and this, they had that San Diego Comic-Con like one-page pamphlet that I haven't been able to find, of the M.A.S.K team looking like police officers. It looked
not Unit E, right?
I don't remember exactly what it was called, but basically it teased it as M.A.S.K police, essentially. I don't remember. Said I haven't been able to find an actual good shot of it. So we had, there was like these little spurts type thing. But yeah, so was a comic medium the best way to reintroduce M.A.S.K? Comics aren't as popular as they once were.
No.
Which it's a sad statement to make, but
it's a struggling industry. Yeah.
Was that the best way to go with an entity like M.A.S.K? I'm appreciative that it happened, but everybody remembers it for two things: the toys and the cartoon. They don't remember it for the comics, even though the comics were popular.
Yeah,
they don't remember for that. So I don't know. Do you think the scaling played a part in its demise?
In terms of the actual mask, it's like original mask. I think probably it did, but because I mean, a lot of toys were going in a different direction, and like I said, there were quite a lot of that similar scale mask size kind of scale figures knocking around, and they did do they did amazing numbers when they first got released, and they were enjoyable to play with. I mean, Mask was just the best to play with ever. It was amazing, so many features, and when you've got those kind of like gimmicks and fun aspects to figures, I mean, you can't really go wrong. I think over time, though, as the toy landscape changed a little bit, I think there were some lines could get away with doing certain scales, and others had to do them slightly differently. And like I said before, like Turtles came out and they kind of dominated that arena for a while. But then you got things bouncing out of that, like Toxic Crusaders went along the kind of Turtles aesthetic, didn't they?
I got Toxie down there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And again, like that was another cracking line. Bucky O'Hare, another beautiful like one and done series, but with all those series 2 that never kind of came out, and the Jenny figure that I've seen like on eBay a bunch of times, like at like 8,000 or 9,000, was the last time I think I saw it. It's probably gone up now. It's probably gone up even more. But like, so many lines would kind of piggyback on trends to get the most out of their time on the shelves. Like, they weren't going to be there for very long, so they had to maximize that profit. And I think, as much as M.A.S.K probably did slip away in terms of scale, I think a lot more kind of helped in its demise. One was the way they shifted gears, pun intended, to the racing formula, when it didn't really make sense. It was a bit jarring in the cartoon how all of a sudden you've got these factions that were head to head and now racing against each other. It felt a little bit weird and a little bit contrived. I don't know. It was just a lot of weird stuff going on with the media, and because that didn't take, the toys aren't going to be that popular. Even though you're getting some like figures that you wouldn't see again, like you hadn't seen previously coming in, and you're not going to see again. You didn't know that, but like finally getting Gloria, not Gloria, finally getting Gloria Baker.
Vanessa was in the racing series.
Yeah.
Gloria didn't come out till split seconds.
Yeah, exactly. So finally getting her, finally having Gloria Baker, but then not having Shark was like, what is going on here? So again, like, cool, she came with a cool vehicle, but at the same time there was nothing to really tie in with kids' emotions, which is kind of what you need to do. You need to play that, oh my god, it's on the TV show, it's really awesome, I need that in toy form. Like, that is something really powerful. And they even made it a law back then that you couldn't advertise to kids through that medium. Like, cartoons had to be, due to trading standards or whatever, whoever it was that was dealing with that stuff at the time, that you couldn't do that. Even Kirk Bazigian's talked about that being the marketing for G.I. Joe. They had to kind of think of different ways of marketing their stuff, and they used advertising, like animated commercials for the comic books to do their dirty work. So yeah, it was like it was interesting that you all knew that the cartoon was an advert for the toys. Like, everybody knew that.
I mean, that was every show in the 80s. Yeah, it was
but that's part of the love of it. Like, you're gonna fall in love with a brand, whether you're being marketed to or not. Like, just because you love the toys, doesn't mean they should be separate in any way. Like, I kind of feel like that you need to tie all of this stuff together. So I think where it started losing that, tying into the show and the show's quality dropping off, or at least jumping the shark, again, pun intended, jumping the rhino. But like, at the same time, like, I think that had a lot more to do with it. And also maybe the cost of producing a lot of those vehicles, because the features were so intricate and complex. It took a lot of building, a lot of engineering. Not as much as, say, a Transformer, but they're making billions. So like, or at the time, millions. So that isn't necessarily a big issue for them. And they're just taking from lines that already exist anyway. They're not even doing the groundwork a lot of the time. So yeah, I think M.A.S.K struggled in that it was very high end from an early stage.
I agree with that. I agree with the fact that I mean, obviously that's the allure of it. That's one of the allures. The ingenuity of like the Series 1 line, I still hold it as like some of the most innovative toy design I think I've ever seen.
Big time. And
not just being biased, but like, and then you get to the split second series and you're like, what the hell is this thing?
Yeah.
It kind of makes you wonder too, because Kenner was 80, 85. I'm trying to remember their lifeline. Because they had the Star Wars. I don't know if they were doing Return of the Jedi at that time, or if this was after Star Wars. Because obviously they had a big run with the Star Wars line. I'm trying to remember the timeline exactly. I don't remember if this was after Star Wars and they were trying to reinvigorate their sales. They did a good job of it, but obviously it didn't have the same holding power as a Star Wars line or anything else that they would produce. But it was 85, 86, and 87, and then we had some random attempts. Laser Command. Interestingly enough, that was made by the guy who made Commodore 64 and
Yeah,
Sun.
yeah, yeah.
He recently passed away, Ralph Barra, but
Oh,
we did an interview with him years ago. It's just like an interesting thing. They tried to reinvigorate, but it didn't work the way they wanted. I I saw a lot. I have hope that um, you know, websites like yours and all the other entities out there that not only focus on what they're really good at, but they also still jump into these realms. I hold out hope that the producers, the marketing people over in Hollywood are going to see these things and realize that there's something there.
yeah,
But if you don't make the attempt, then what are you doing?
totally.
And we can close out with this. So F. Gary Gray, he's done a few movies over the years. He's won some awards. And one of the last things he's done was one of the Fast and the Furious movies.
Yeah, seems like a good fit. Yeah,
It does. And I'm not a huge fan, I'll admit that, of some of the movies in the franchise.
sure,
For what
same.
they are, they're over the top, like crazy.
Car porn.
Exactly. And that's what I feel like you need for the M.A.S.K line in order to really get the guy down the street here who might remember M.A.S.K. If I wore this shirt and walked past him, he's like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
Not actively following it. If you could come out with something along the lines of Thunderhawk, looking obviously a little more streamlined and
Yeah, totally.
standards. You get that on in a trailer in a big screen somewhere. You get Condor going somewhere.
Well, you have to say it worked for the Transformers franchise to a degree. Like when they first brought out the first Transformers movie, the Michael Bay one kind of series. I mean, it was huge. Like, yeah, I'll totally agree. Like 2, 3, 5, 9, 8, 12. The rest of them are just garbage.
I didn't see Bumblebee yet, though.
Bumblebee's good.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed Bumblebee, and I was getting really excited, hoping for a Calhoun Burns kind of
it was supposed to be
reveal.
John Cena's character, right?
Yeah. Well, he's Agent Burns, and I was thinking, I'm going to do a Photoshop mock-up of him as Calhoun Burns just to see, just to stoke the fires. But I was also expecting like a G.I. Joe kind of maybe like thing. There he is. There's you can't see me.
Yeah.
But I was expecting them to do some sort of like G.I. Joe or Duke or some sort of like link for him in like towards the end of a post-credit scene. Never happened. And I was so upset. I'm thinking, how many more opportunities are they going to miss to tie their brands together? Because that's something they've been wanting to do for ages. And it's something they could have done multiple times in the Transformers series. And even, M.A.S.K get a look in. They could be... what I always think is like they would be like the experimental weapons and vehicles for the G.I. Joe, covert operation. And M.A.S.K is just the acronym for that, like that kind of faction of Joe. So that just makes sense to me. Like all these things fit together, and then to have like Cybertronian technology taken on board for M.A.S.K to have transforming vehicles, it just, to me, it's like a no bloody brainer. But for some reason, it's just never really taken that way. And I think that like an F. Gary Gray movie, again, we reported on that when the news broke, like almost a year or so ago.
Over a year.
Nothing since. You know what I mean? It's just been like. But then again, there was talk that there was a writer for the Rom movie, and then there was talk that the Vigilant G.I. Joe was going to be coming out. Then it became Snake Eyes solo movie. Then it became this. Then it became. So you just get no idea where you are. Like, because I think one of the problems is too much information is coming out at stages that you never had information in the past. Like that was like super top secret. No one would be telling you about their plans for the script of this movie. It would just be like you wouldn't know it was even in filming until like it came out. Do you know what I mean?
The only hope I have is that he just finished up the new Men in Black movie.
Yeah.
And with that in the theaters now, and there's no more press tours of it, obviously I'll probably take some time off. And then my hope is that M.A.S.K is his next project.
Yeah. I hope it's at least part of the plans. You know what I mean? I hope it's like it's in there because it has to be. Like, this is I don't know, to me, this is like a massive, massive, like, opportunity to make something really good. In terms of it being like an opportunity, it's a massive opportunity for them to make something really good with like a, like a decent cast, a decent, like,
You have to be known people, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
I mean, obviously you want to tie somebody in there, but it doesn't have to be like, sometimes, the fans will throw ideas to me like, who you want to be Matt-Trakker.
Yeah.
People say Aaron Eckhart, but I'm like, yeah, that maybe 15 years ago that would have worked, but not now.
Yeah.
I'd be happy with anybody.
Was it like Bradley Cooper was one that was tossed around for, I think, Brad Turner?
Agents of M.A.S.K did a poll.
Yeah, that was it. It was what is ages ago, when it's like years ago that.
Yeah, it was.
And that's what's upsetting, is that we're not getting anything, like, ever. We're not getting any kind of movement on this stuff. And I feel like there is, and I think a lot of that is to do with the fact that the people that are on these movies, like writing it, there has to be a passion behind it, or they have an incentive. If you're writing something that you're not passionate about, then you definitely need, that you need to be paid for that particular situation, like, well. And I just don't think that like M.A.S.K is in a position for, say, Hasbro to drop that kind of money on it at the moment. It needs something before it goes to that next stage. I think there's, obviously we had toys and animated shows in the past that you could build from. And, even back then we didn't get a G.I. Joe movie, live action movie. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. We had to wait to 2009, and that was utter garbage. But, like, you have all of this, I don't know, you have all of this, like, opportunity to do something great, but obviously it's great for us. There's a great opportunity for us to kind of, like, think about. But is that something that's on their radar? Is that going to make them billions and billions of dollars that they need to recoup for a $200 and something million budget?
Yeah, I know. It's just, as you said, there's a lot of missed opportunities. But all I can do is hold out hope with what we have.
Yeah.
Community and all the other offshoots of the communities, and podcasts like yours that you talked about M.A.S.K for like 6 hours that one day, and you probably could have went longer too.
Oh, easily. I didn't even cover the hilarious bootleg that you found the other day.
Oh God, yeah.
That is amazing. I love it.
All I was doing was looking up Ace Riker.
Ghostbusters slingshot crossover.
I found that damn thing. I'm still finding things, and it's 2019, and that I look a lot. So for me to still find things is kind of weird. But
yeah.
No, I mean, the scaling was a big part of it, and I'm happy that other entities have been able to continue.
Yeah.
But I'm also jealous in the same sense.
Yeah.
That happened, and also too that I really can't have Matt-Trakker fight Donatello. This doesn't work. But before we close out, I wanted to know if there was anything else that you wanted to bring up, anything you want to help, you want to promote for your podcast coming up, and just kind of thank you for your time and everything. We've been on for a while.
No worries, Bill. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. My
so nephew are going to be back here soon, so I gotta.
No worries. Yeah.
Help out there.
Not a problem. No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah. So you can catch us on the Full Force podcast at pretty much anywhere. Facebook, Twitter, Podbean, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. We're all over the place. We do news bursts and comic bursts fairly regularly, and then Disorder of Battles every couple of months, and then a main audio episode whenever we can find the time to do it. The next one's going to be on robotics. We're doing like a kind of alternative combined universe, which so far has featured Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, because obviously they're related to G.I. Joe in the figure department.
I had some of those when I was.
Yeah.
I don't have them now.
Amazing figures. Also, Centurions we did, Battle Beasts we did quite recently. We've done all sorts of episodes recently of different kind of possible combine a different combined universe for Hasbro anyway. So catch us on there and like us, subscribe to us, comment, do all that good stuff. And thanks for having me on here today, Bill. I really appreciate it.
And anytime you want to talk M.A.S.K on your show.
100%. In actual fact, next time, or as soon as we get any more movie news regarding M.A.S.K and F. Gary Gray, I'm going to be calling you to jump on and do a burst with us if that's possible.
Anything's possible.
Awesome.
So, I'd be happy to. It's always nice to meet new friends online with these type of things. And
totally, man. Totally.
Chris, I thank you for jumping on. And until next time, this is Bill from Matt-Trakker.com and Chris from the Full Force.
Full Force.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye.